Welcome back to another triathlon podcast. We are back with some more pro interviews coming out of Ironman Texas. We were just so excited after an incredible weekend of racing. And this time we've got Steph Clutterbuck on the podcast. We're so excited to get to know a little bit more about her history, her racing, and what she's got coming up this season. And as always, joined by Josh. But let's start off with saying hi to Steph. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And given I raced an Ironman like 5 days ago and then traveled back to Europe, I'm doing pretty well.
That's great to hear. How about you, Josh? How are you doing this, I guess, morning for you?
It's almost the weekend, so yeah, I survived my now second week of work with Super Dry, so looking forward to this interview.
Excellent. Well, let's jump into it. And Steph, we wanted to learn a little bit more about kind of your history in the sport. How did you get pulled into this crazy combination of three sports?
I mean, it's, yeah. I was actually looking at my first Ironman result earlier today, which,
Really?
yeah, it's one of the, I enjoy doing it every now and then because I think I forget, you do forget where you've come from. But I had no interest in triathlon growing up. I was a swimmer and I didn't run. Like it was a rule. I don't run. So therefore triathlon was like wasn't even a consideration. And then I kind of switched to rowing around university
Okay.
or college age and fell out of that with an injury. And kind of through that process of I had a chronic back injury and there was a huge amount of kind of work I needed to do on myself mentally with regards to anxiety and imposter syndrome and kind of feeling like I'd massively failed on the one big goal that an entire career had been aiming towards. And I needed to do something impossible. I needed
Yeah.
to do something really hard to prove to myself that I was capable. So I thought I'd just sign up for an Ironman. Uh,
As you
and that
do.
was that
Not a
was it.
local triathlon, an
No, no,
Ironman.
no, no, and Ironmans, and that was probably the extent of the thought process that I had. Like, I need to do something hard. What's really hard? Well, I don't run. Let's do an Ironman and just like run a marathon, but also do all of the other things before it. So I was considerate enough to give myself a year to train
Okay.
for it. Like it wasn't like
Gracious.
a 1 month thing. Yeah, I did lean into my athlete side a little bit there and was like, I don't think I could race for 12 hours with no training. Like that feels a bit too extreme even for me in this highly impulsive stage of my life. Um, so yeah, it was Copenhagen in August 2019 was my first Ironman, and I know because I've literally just looked. I came 18th in my age group. So, you get these like stories of these, wonder kids that are coming in and just excellent. I wasn't. Like I really wasn't. I could swim. I think I did a 57-minute swim. I did a 5-hour 45 bike on a time trial bike that cost me £400 and I bought 2 weeks before the race.
Thanks.
And I
That's
ran a
advantageous.
4:25. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like perfect amount of time. Don't need any more than that. And I ran a 4-hour 25. And, so it was like there was nothing on that day that suggested I would ever be any good at swim bike run, but something got me. Um, and I think I'm sure lots of people resonate with that. It was the worst day of my life, the hardest thing I have ever done. But I crossed that finish line and knew I was going to do another one.
Feel like I need more of this in my
Yeah,
life.
I need to do more. And that was it. From that moment, it was like, right, well, okay, I guess we're doing this now then.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that was it.
that's fantastic.
And then you look back at it like, well, it was the worst day of my life, but technically it might be the best day of my life.
Exactly. It changed my life, like completely changed my life because now we're here and this is my life for real, which is utterly mind blowing for me. Um,
Well, take us along that journey a little bit. How did you go from suffering through an Ironman, coming that far down your age group to, hey, I'm just going to do this as a living, as a professional?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is where I'm definitely blocked out a lot of it because it was painful and really hard. So not racing in 2020 with the pandemic was probably one of the best things for my career development. At the time, it was awful because I just started this amazing sport and I wanted to do some more racing. But in actual fact, I got 2 years of uninterrupted training for my next Ironman. So I raced August 2019, and the next one wasn't until October 2021. And during that time, there was like 6 key months in 2020 when like nothing else was going on. I wasn't at work. I'd been made redundant from my job. So all it was triathlon to kind of keep me focused and trying not to lose my mind in this like world that just apparently got crazy really fast. So there was a year of development that was missing in terms of racing, but that was a hugely important year for me with regards to training. And it got to October 21 and I'd upgraded my bike. It didn't cost £400 anymore. I think it cost about £2,000, which is even now ridiculously cheap. Like, you're not getting a time trial bike for that little money anymore. And I'd done some more running. So I was doing consistent half marathons, which was a big deal because I was not doing that before my first one. And I went into it and my partner, Matt, goes, I think you could win your age group in this. And I was like, well, hang on a sec. Like, I was 18th last time. Like, maybe we shoot for top 10 rather than winning. That's a bit extreme. He was like, no, you're going really well. Like, I really do think you could win. So I turned up to Portugal, Ironman Portugal in 2021, and I remember crying on the start line, just with the emotion of the fact that this was 2 years worth of work.
Yeah.
And for so many people, it was 2 years worth of work. And we'd all been through this crazy year the year before. And I think all Ironmans that year was super emotional for everyone because there was just so much more context that didn't exist in the years prior. And I had as close to a perfect day as you can have in an Ironman, where I just kind of massively outperformed certainly my own expectations and won my age group. And I was in complete shock because as well as winning my age group, I won overall. And it was the first iteration of the race. So I got the course record that wasn't broken the next year. And I was like, oh, wow, like, this is really cool.
That is so cool.
And I think it was in that moment that I thought, yeah, I could make a career out of this. And that was 2 years before I qualified for my pro license. But I knew that I loved it rather than kind of hating it and then loving it. Like, I actually knew that I loved it this time. And I'd so enjoyed the process leading up to the race that it was kind of a no-brainer for me to properly commit physically, mentally, and emotionally to the journey. Whereas I think before I'd probably committed physically. Like, yeah, I can go through the motions of training to get as good as I want, but the emotional commitment is really hard, especially kind of coming from failing in my previous 2 sports that hurt. Like, the risk when you put your emotions into something of it getting thrown in your face. Like, it was October 21 where I was like, yeah, okay, we're all in.
And you talk about the other sports. You weren't just having aspirations. You had some high aspirations at those sports too, like Olympic aspirations and beyond, or whatever that may entail.
Yeah.
And then you had the back injury, but you're still doing a sport that involves a lot of back and then getting in the TT position. So how has that transition, and was that a struggle at first, and were you worried about that?
Yeah, so yes, it absolutely was. And the period of healing with my back injury has been quite intense. So I herniated 2 discs, and in herniating the 2 discs, I displaced the nerves down to my left foot, which means that even to this day, I've just got pins and needles down in my left foot, like, constantly. I did make the sensible decision to go and see a specialist after we decided to do a second Ironman, just to check that I wasn't going to do any extra damage, because by the end of my rowing career, I couldn't sleep properly. Like, I had to have, almost like pregnancy pillows just to keep my pelvis in a position that offloaded my back. I had an 8-hour window from waking up to when my nerve pain started. So I was kind of cramming all my training in that. And I just, mentally, that takes such a toll. And I didn't want to get back there. So this whole career that we've created has been around making sure that I do find and keep joy, because you never know when things are going to get tough. And I've been fortunate that so far, touch wood, I haven't had an injury. So I haven't had to revisit where I was back in kind of 2017, 2018. But thankfully, because the injury was related to rowing, we don't have any movement that's quite like rowing within the swim bike run. So the hardest part was retraining my body not to send my back into spasm as a stress response, because it would be any stress. Like if I had a stressful day at work, I'd get back
Really?
pain.
Oh,
If I'd be stood up for too long, I'd get back pain. If I'd gone out too hard in a session, I'd get back pain. So we've had it's been I've had to work quite hard at trying to stay stress free, which is even more hard every time you're like, don't be stressed. You're like, well, I am stressed, so I'm going to keep getting stressed. It's just not a useful thing to say. But yeah, retraining the neural pathways just to not do that, because Ironman days are stressful and they do put a lot of stress on the body. And in Copenhagen, I did experience quite a lot of back pain on the run. But I mean, thankfully, I've not had a back flare up for probably close to 3 years now,
oh wow.
which is a relief. But I do kind of S&C work and gym work religiously. I go and see a physio very regularly just to stay on top of all of that, because I know it's something that I'm going to have forever. I mean, they did say, they were like, oh, your back will regenerate in 10 years. And I'm like 7 years on. So I've got another 3 years until apparently it'll fix itself, but we'll see.
So then, not to make light of it, but maybe you'll be that first woman to go sub 8 because you've got that 8-hour window before the pain.
Yeah, it's a very
Motivation.
compelling reason to do it, isn't it? Like, I have to do it before the pain starts.
There we go. Now, when you jumped in, so you're fairly new to being a pro triathlete. When you jumped into that first pro race, kind of how did that feel after coming from the age group field where you're obviously at the front to, yeah, doing that first pro race?
uh, so my first pro race was a bit of a disaster. I broke my wheel about 7 kilometers in. I hit a pothole and the
No.
carbon just completely shattered. So heartbreaking was how my first pro
Yeah.
race felt. But I think because I raced from the front as an age grouper, I was very used to being at the front.
Mhm.
So for me, I was excited to actually have company, and have people to swim and ride with, because yeah, I was just so used to it being an individual time trial
Mhm.
where I was out all day just waiting to see if people would run through me or not. Um, so for me, it was really exciting, and I love racing people, and I want the day to win. That day I win, I beat everyone else on their best day. I think that's
I
what's
love
best for the
that.
sport. We want to race the best and we want to beat them at the best. So yeah, that first pro race was heartbreaking for me, but I had another go 3 weeks later, and like Laura Phillip was there, Emma Pannant Brown was there. It was the Pro Series race in Mallorca last year, and I was just so excited. It's like I was like a kid at Christmas. Just, I get to do this. I get to turn up and race some of the best in the world over swim bike run in the sunshine by the sea. Like, how cool is this? I'm not sat at my desk anymore working. Like, I get to do this, and that stayed true. I just think it's such a privilege to get out and race. And yeah, okay, I get nervous because I care,
Mhm.
but I've experienced performance anxiety before, and I don't get that anymore, which is so refreshing. I love it.
Oh, that's amazing.
And even if you probably get it, you've probably learned how to turn it into a positive energy and
Yeah.
probably helps fuel you on race day.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it is that it's around the pressure as a privilege, and we do this because we love it. And I've got my kind of things that I write lists because I forget things around race day when I kind of there's lots going on, and I've got my process that helps me deal with the nerves so that I can be in control as much as I can. Because I think that's when you start to spiral, is when well, certainly for me, I feel like things are out of my control. And thankfully, I have learned some lessons over the last 2 decades of being in sport. So I've kind of I've figured out how to stay in control as much as I can, um, so I can enjoy the privilege of racing.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it was great to see you down and meet you down in Texas at Ironman Texas, part of the Pro Series. And I have to say, I was impressed that you were out at the Pro Tri News live podcast in the days before the race there. We don't often see the
I
pros kind of hang
figured
out with everyone.
it was 2 days out and there was lemonade on tap, so I was
There we
quite happy
go.
to be there.
And it was obviously sponsored by Ventum Bikes, and it looks like you got a shiny new bike this season. How are you liking it so far?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's amazing to partner with Ventum. And I so appreciate them jumping on board with a second year pro where, you know, I don't have the status of some of these big athletes. I don't have the results behind, but they wanted to join the party, and I love
Yes.
that. And it's so refreshing to have a brand that's like, yeah, absolutely, let's help you get where you want to go, rather than, oh, we see that you're there already, we want to join, now we want to join. But they've been fantastic, and I've got a purple bike, which is just so cool. It just looks so
Not
good.
2,000 pounds.
No, it's not 2,000. I have definitely upgraded on the bike front. Yeah, not 2,000 pounds anymore. Hopefully I found some extra speed with that as well.
Definitely. And when it looks good, that just adds a couple extra watts too.
Definitely. Look good, feel good, race good is
Exactly.
such an important mantra.
So, how did you feel going into Ironman Texas this year? How was your race lead up?
Lead up was good. It was very different for me. So something that we took from last year into this year was the process, these series, the kind of the series of races that exist now. They're super important, and I was fortunate enough to qualify for Kona for this year last year at Ironman Chattanooga. So I basically had complete freedom over my race calendar. So I wanted to practice racing a full pro series without any of the pressure to perform, because like no one expects it. I'm still relatively unknown when it comes to results, and I'm sure people expect me to swim fast and then bike hard, but then I won't deliver on the run. You know, it's that kind of, I'm not a threat yet. So we wanted to do it without the pressure. And going into Texas, I'd raced Oceanside 3 weeks before, and it felt very early doing 2 races in April. Like I had quite a late off season. I started training again early January, and I was like, oh, it's not that long. It's really not that long until, one, I'm on the start line, but two, I'm on the start line for an Ironman. Like they are still quite terrified. I think they're terrified for everyone, because it's such a big day and you don't really know what's coming. So I felt good in the lead up. I didn't feel good on Oceanside Day, but the 3 weeks before that I'd had in Texas, like my body really started to pull up, and having some time in the heat, some time in the humidity was really important just for my mindset going in, that it didn't feel totally alien compared to what I had been training in before. So I was excited. I felt like I could deliver a performance that I would be proud of. And for me, that was a huge win in itself, because I've raced Kona twice. I've had 2 really quite terrible days. And when you then look at the conditions, you're like, oh, that's quite similar to a Kona day. I need to have a good day here, so that when I turn up to Kona in October, I feel like I can have a good day there too. So that was the intention, which again is quite nice, because it's actually nothing to do with performance. It's much more to do with how you execute, which is fully in your control. And then whatever happens, happens. So yeah, it was a much more relaxed Ironman start than normal. But an approach that I really enjoyed.
I like that. And it seems like there's been a lot of pros the last couple of years, especially try and do the double with Oceanside as that rust buster breakout, almost like a training day, a hard training day, your best training day leading into an Ironman block. Did you feel like, even though you didn't feel well at Oceanside, that did help you going into Texas to get that rust broken?
100%. Even just to remember what a triathlon is, like how it all works. I think having done it before, it made it much less stressful on Ironman Day, which is more stressful than a 70.3 anyway. The conditions were very different. So I think physiologically, you probably don't transfer that much over, because Oceanside was a super cold swim. Texas was a swim skin. And then the bike in Oceanside was cold. It was already warm in Texas. So, you know, there are elements of it where they don't necessarily map over that well, but just going through the process of doing a hard swim bike run day, doing a transition, remembering how to undo zips and to grab your helmet first and all that sort of stuff that you kind of forget well, you don't really forget, but you do kind of forget through winter. And then like my brain was already wired into it when I got to Texas, and my transitions were good without me even like trying to make them good. I didn't feel like I was rushing anything. It all felt very much in control, which I think, yeah, makes the Ironman day a little bit smoother. And also just the opportunity to test out equipment for the first time, because it was a new bike for me and we had new hydration solutions, and I lost a bottle in Oceanside, and that is just not an option in an Ironman.
Me too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
There were so many potholes. I have never experienced that before, other than on training rides here in the UK.
I was going to say, you're over in the UK, so I think that'd be familiar.
Yeah.
But you're not carrying 3 or 4 bottles that are that important either.
Yeah. And nor do they ever seem to eject and nearly hit people off their bikes. I think one of my bottles nearly took out Paula and Jackie. And then I just felt awful, because that's not what we want.
That's not how you want to win.
No, and it's not what you want to do when you meet people for the first time either, is it? It's like, hi, I'm Steph, have a bottle. Like, that's not the one. So yeah, it was good to kind of go through that in a relatively risk-free zone. It was like, well, okay, if I drop a bottle, I'm still going to finish the race. It's going to be a bit painful, but it'll be fine. Whereas I needed to know, like, so I used bike special needs in the Ironman just in case I dropped a bottle, which isn't an option in 70.3, but just knowing it was there was like, okay, it's fine. Like, it doesn't matter if I lose one because I've got one when I need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of Texas and that, like you said, kind of Kona conditions, obviously training in the UK, you're not getting 30-degree days with 90% humidity. So, did you do much kind of heat prep in the lead up back at home before you head over, or how did you kind of get ready for those hotter conditions?
Yeah, this year, because it was so early, it's a real balance between wanting to get fit and make physiological gains from training and wanting to prepare for the heat, because especially this early when you're unfit doing heat prep, it ruins you. Like, it just sends you spiraling into a hole that is so difficult to pull yourself out of. So I have been on 2 training camps to Lanzarote this year, so I didn't miss the worst of the UK winter, but I did balance it with some days that were at least over 20 degrees in heat, when it was like 0 and raining and grey and horrible here, which kind of gave me a bit of a foundation, but it's not very humid. It's super dry heat. But it was like, okay, we've ticked off like one element of it. I was doing some hot baths, so I didn't actually I don't think I did. Maybe I did one bike in winter kit inside, but I didn't do any active heat prep. I did do some passive stuff, so just getting into a hot bath after training, or kind of a much longer hot bath if it wasn't after training, which I found helps me because it tapers that fatigue a little bit, and it means that I don't the training load doesn't build out of control. But because we knew I had 3 weeks in Texas before the race, there was much less pressure to do like heat prep before Oceanside, because it was like, well, I'm gonna get 3 weeks anyway. Let's just get fit and get semi race ready, and then we'll do the heat prep while we're on location.
What was your like living arrangements in Texas? It seems like everyone who's been there and goes there for a couple of weeks just really enjoys the whole woodlands and that whole area and the homestays. How did you get by when you were there?
Yeah, so I stayed with a friend of mine, Jana Richova, who's, she wins her age group.
She's awesome.
Kind of the world champion. She's absolutely amazing. And we were on the Zwift Academy together in 2023. I kind of stayed together in Kona. So when we found out when we decided that I was going to do Texas, it was just a no-brainer. We get on so well, and she's so laid back that it was like, actually, you're the perfect person to babysit me through the 3 weeks. And it was very much appreciated just to have her kind of show me the ropes in the woodlands, because it is an amazing place. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it there. Swimming at Villa Sport was just unreal. I mean, why can't all of our gyms have like 4 pools, 2 of them outside, hot tubs everywhere? Like, it was just such a dream. And then also to have someone show me the riding, like cycling in the US is so different to cycling in the UK, and it's very easy to get it wrong. And that's like whether or not you get it wrong or just being in a situation that is not one that you're used to. So to
Yeah.
have someone like guide me through that was very needed.
And
'cause
she
it
rides a
was,
bite pretty well too,
yeah.
so at least she'd be able to
She's,
put in some good
I,
time.
Not a bad age grouper.
no, I sat on her wheel for 3 weeks, so I don't think I took a turn.
No, that's awesome. And that definitely helps when you have that right environment and atmosphere around you to keep the head good going into race day.
For sure. Especially being so far away from
Yeah.
home. Like it was a 6 hour time difference, which is really awkward to like figure out because in the morning when you wake up, everyone else is in the middle of their day.
Mhm.
And then when they're at the end of the day, you're in the middle of yours. Whereas kind of in Hawaii, it's always bookended. So like your morning
Fair.
is their evening and vice versa. Whereas this was like, oh, can we chat? No, I'm busy. Can we chat now? No, I'm busy. So yeah, I did end up feeling a bit lonely, but Jana was wonderful company and kept my head happy for the 3 weeks, which was great.
Well, that's great to hear. Now, when it comes to your racing the rest of the season here, sounds like you're chasing up that pro series. What races do you have coming up on the calendar?
So next one is Hamburg, and I crossed the finish line, and I know Kat is also doing Hamburg, and I said to her, I can't believe we're racing again in 6 weeks. She looked at me like I was insane. She was like, Steph, it's 5. And I was like, oh, oh, it's not 6 weeks then. Okay, we've got one less week. And that week feels very important.
Yeah.
It feels like quite a long week.
Shows you how dialed in she is right now, too.
And how dialed in I am not. Wasn't there. Certainly not 2
I have
minutes
another
after
race
crossing the
coming
line.
up.
Yeah, I'll just be on the start line when it happens. It'll be so fine. So yeah, Hamburg is the next one.
Mhm.
The day after the race, I was like, oh no, this feels very, very soon. But I'm actually really excited now. I think
Yeah.
I'm feeling very good, and I know that physiologically, like, didn't push myself right to the limit in Texas, so I know that recovery will be smoother, and hopefully there's somewhere for me to go in Hamburg. And then after that, it will be Swansea 70.3. It is such a privilege for us to have a big race in the UK because it does not happen very often. And I've raced Swansea 70.3 before as an age grouper. My family is actually Welsh, and it's so fun to be somewhere that kind of we love so much, to go and race the thing that I love so much doing. So that's going to be fab. And then it will be, well, I don't know after that. So the next Pro Series race will be Kona. But I'll do 1 or 2 70.3s in that gap and hopefully go away somewhere hot as well to do some heat training because I need to do that.
How has, you mentioned early on that the run was never something you wanted to do. And how has that progression been? I think obviously the bike and the leg strength and everything you had from your rowing background and your athletic background translates, but the running mentally and physically, how has that progressed? Obviously you've made a big strides there.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually something that I've loved working on. I think rowing, both rowing and swimming, there was a huge element of skill development with it. And that's something that I thrive on. I love trying to understand something better, especially when it comes to movement patterns. So almost having my run as a project to, like, last year, we stripped it down completely and rebuilt it from the ground up because it just wasn't efficient. It wasn't working. So we changed everything from my foot strike to my arm carriage to my cadence and my pelvic position. So all of it changed. And for this year, it's about kind of consolidating that. And I had a really good run in Chattanooga where I ran, I think it was a 3:05, which was 17 minutes faster than I'd ever run before.
And that's not an easy course either.
No, it was so hard.
They've got that hill.
I
That hill
was
is just
so many hills. I was so many hills. But what helped me was it rained all day.
Ah.
I was like, core body temperature is a huge thing for me. So the fact it rained meant that I stayed really cool, so I was able to run hard. And so this year is I don't know whether we'll replicate that, and I'm totally fine with it because Texas was hot, Kona will be hot, Hamburg could be great, but it could be warm. So you're just like, I'm still at the point that when it's a hard run, I am losing more time than the quicker runners. And the intention now is to kind of keep building my resilience as a runner so that I'm less impacted by conditions rather than shooting to get faster and faster and faster. Because okay, it's great if I could run a 250 off the bike, but if it's 2 degrees too hot and I'm consistently running 3.5 hours, then what's the point? So it's a journey, and I completely understand that. And it's one of those where you're like, I don't know when I'm going to see results, but we will see them. And I'm actually okay with that because it's part of it being fun. And one day I'm just going to, just like Chattanooga, it was like, oh my God, I ran a 3:05. Wasn't expecting that. That's amazing. Like that will happen again.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, it does get hard when there's people are running through you and you're like, okay, I was in third and now I'm in fourth and now I'm in fifth and two people have passed and I'm in seventh. So you're counting back. But what I loved about Texas is I held a position. My aim is always to hold a position in the last percentage of the race. So whether it's the last quarter or the last third, and on that lap, the last lap in Texas, I held on to eighth, which was huge because it was like, I mean, I dug really hard, really hard for it. But it was like, okay, we are making progress because I am able to dig in and hold like at the back end of races.
Yeah, and that's something we're just talking on another episode about, just kind of trusting that process and buying into the whole training philosophy that you are following. Now, are you working with a coach in your training, or how are you going about it right now?
Yeah, so I'm coached by Tim Don and have been working with it. This is year 3, I
He knows a
think.
bit about triathlon and
He knows a little bit about triathlon, just a little bit. Can't tell him he knows too much. But yeah, and it's been great, and he has fully bought into this. Well, actually, he's driven the redoing of Run Form, and I started working with him because I really liked his philosophy for coaching. So I was still an age grouper and I was still working full time, which was slightly crazy hours because I was working for a corporate, and he was all about doing the least amount of training to get as good as you could get. And it's meant that this kind of transition to being professional, we haven't jumped up and started doing like stupid volume. I'm only just at over 20 hours of training a week. Like I really don't do that much, which for me is really exciting because it's like, well, I've got so far to go. There's so much more I can give, but we're getting as good as we can get with this and just pushing out that inevitable plateau a couple of years because we've got a change of stimulus that can come each year quite easily by just adding a little bit more volume, especially over the run, because I can't just run 7 hours a week. My body will not tolerate it. My 2 previous sports, I was either not supporting my body weight because I was lying down or I was sat down. Like my joints just don't really compute with maintaining body weight and kind of running on them. So yeah, we're taking our time and respecting that my body needs to change and will continue to change over the next couple of years, which is, I think, is really important when you look at longevity within a sport.
Have you used any specific tools to help with some of that load management as well with the run and other aspects?
Yeah, I partnered with Lever Systems last year, and they have been fantastic at, especially in that phase where I was relearning movement patterns, because that is probably the most critical point that you're going to get injured because tendons and muscles and joints are all working in a way they've never worked before.
Yeah.
To have a system that reduced my body weight, which meant that I could still practice the movement without actually loading them too much has meant that it's been really smooth, and I use the lever at least twice a week. It's like my run on it today, this morning, was on the system just because I could get a 45-minute run in at like 85% body weight, and I can still get the movement pattern and get some loading, but just so much less loading than if you're outside running on hard tarmac. So yeah, that is without a doubt my favorite tool to use.
It definitely makes a difference when you can get that volume in. And we're talking, and another one where you just have all that capacity as a swimmer, as an athlete who's been doing that. So it takes a little bit of time to build the body up to that physical resiliency of all the pounding of running.
For sure. And it's so hard. I'm sure that like concrete and tarmac in the US is harder than here in the UK.
Definitely. Well, we've got a couple of quick fire questions that we like to ask our pro athletes that come on here. Nothing too crazy, but we'll start with what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten during a race or training? Maybe you're bonking by the side of the road and just need anything.
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
One of those long Zwift Academy rides.
Yeah, for sure. This is where I can't remember anything. I had a craving in Lanzarote. What was it for? I think it's probably not going to be that weird, but it was weird in the context of a ride. I really wanted some chocolate,
Yeah.
which is a bit odd because I don't tend to want dairy in the middle of rides. But I think it was raining, and I just wanted to get off my bike, so I was like, I'm just going to treat myself with some
Just some
chocolate.
comfort food when you're out
Yeah,
there suffering in
comfort
the rain.
food. And then I'm going to get back out and go again. Which I appreciate is not that weird, but it was a very weird one for me. I'm usually like sweets. I'll get sweets, but
Yeah,
no, it was a bar of chocolate.
fair enough. If you had to race a triathlon as a pair with another pro, who would it be? And this could be someone who you feel you would go faster if you're racing with, or it could just be someone that would be fun to spend the time that an Ironman takes with.
Ah, Danny Reef,
Yeah,
because I will never get the opportunity to race her. So, like, yeah, that would be so cool.
that would be really neat. And
Yeah.
little side note on that, how does it feel kind of racing against these pro athletes that you, as an age grouper, were watching race at the top level, and now you're right there with them?
Absolutely mind blowing. Like, honestly, I pinch myself regularly. Like, I was training in Texas, and, you know, Patrick Langer was there, and Christian Blumenfeld was there, and Gustav Eden was there, Casper Storms was there, and you're just all swimming together, and you're like, these are people that I have watched win world championship races, and I am here with them prepping for a race. Like,
Yeah.
I can't, like, 6 years ago, it wasn't even a possibility that this was a thing that could exist, and now we're here. So yeah, mind blowing. It is. It is.
That is very cool. If triathlon had a fourth discipline that would give you an advantage over everyone else, what would it be?
I'm
Prior
gonna
to the
say,
back injury.
yeah, prior to the back injury, rowing, because if rowing in a single scull, because I don't think anyone else could do it
Mhm.
unless they were also rowers previously. And it would just make such good viewing. Chuck everyone in a single scull
Yeah.
and make them not capsize and move backwards in a straight line. It would be chaos, pure chaos.
Like,
And I just
I'm
think
all
it would be
for it.
great.
I live here in Boston, so I go to the Head of the Charles every year, and it is such an amazing viewing event. And then you make them go do 3 other sports.
So good. It would be so good.
now, where within the triathlon would you slot it?
It would, I think it would have to be it. It would either be before the swim or after the swim.
Yeah, the transition areas would have to be similar.
I think so, yeah. The only reason I'd say after the swim is people would be a little bit more spread out, so it would be slightly less chaotic. But I also think a mass
You need
start
more
of everyone in
chaos.
single sculls would be so good.
I think that the single start and then like a flying dismount off the single skull into the swim.
That would be great. Just like roll off. You've got your hat and goggles in the boat, and then you just chuck them in and dive off.
It's like a super triathlon.
Yeah, maybe you need to pitch that to them.
Like it. What is your guilty pleasure song that gets you fired up in a hard training session or before a race?
Or guilty pleasure. So I love country music,
Yeah?
just generally.
Man,
Yeah,
you were in your
big,
element in
big
Texas.
fan. I know, so great. They were doing acro aerobics to some of the biggest country hits. I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to leave triathlon and do this. Like, this is what I need to do. So I will just put on the Hot Country Spotify playlist, and through we go. Yeah.
That's good. Um, so what's one piece of advice you've given or you've been given over the years that's kind of resonated with you?
Um, it was actually something that got said to me last year, and it was be professional and the results will come.
I like that.
And I think when you're an aspiring pro, it was something that was so important to hear. Like, you don't have to get the results to then act professionally. Just if you act professionally,
Mhm.
the rest of it will follow almost inevitably. And that was pretty, yeah, a defining piece of advice when it came to setting up the business of being a professional triathlete and going after races and looking at the career I wanted to have and then planning of how to get there.
Yeah, I really like that.
Right.
I think a lot of pro athletes kind of miss that part coming up, just kind of seeing how stuff works on the other side with sponsorships and everything. That is something that a lot more pros could stand to hear, we'll say. Oh,
Yeah, I think it is easy to miss because the business of sport is not something that you expect to see or be involved with. And we get into this because we love it, but then there is a business side to it. And it's naive to not see it. Like it is there now, especially with regards to social media and how the brands that we create as professional athletes, um, we need to lean into it so that we can continue living this life and doing the thing that we love. But it's really uncomfortable. And it's just not what you expect.
I think even more so with triathlon than some other sports too, because you're relying on the brand partnerships and those bonuses and those deals more so than a salary or a contract that some of these other sports come with too. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as we actually have complete freedom where other sports are tied into either national governing bodies or teams or, for running, they have a brand that will kind of make them professional. We have complete freedom to create the playbook that we want to have as a person, and that's working with brands that we believe in and believe in us and all that sort of stuff. But it is then so much more work to create that into a book of business that can keep you afloat and keep you traveling the world and racing at the top of your game. But they do go hand in hand now, and I certainly need to do it. I have a mortgage on my house that needs paying. So, and there is an element that it is a privilege that this is my life, but it also needs to pay for my life. It is a job. So,
Yeah.
yes.
So you talked about earlier on that like your whole life has been such a journey and with the change in your career, there was a big struggle mentally and all of that. And I think one of the things you're an inspiration to a lot of age groupers and your journey is such an awesome inspiration for us to look at and give belief to some others and up and coming. But as a female and as a professional athlete, like, can you explain some of those struggles that you had early on and how you overcame them and got to where you are and how you deal with it still to this day, I would imagine.
yeah, I think it's it is a male dominated sport. That is a fact. And as I was kind of in the process of turning professional, it became crystal clear that it was going to be harder to be seen as a new female and to be taken seriously as a new female professional than it would be for a new male professional. And we had conversations with brands that I don't work with that we were like, you wouldn't be having this conversation if I was a man. The way that you would be talking, it would be different. It would be different. And that's probably been the only so triathlon is more equitable than most sports in terms of what we offer professional athletes if you look at the kind of the hard finances and stuff. But with regards to like mindset, there is a way to go. Male triathletes are still more visible at the top end than female triathletes are, and I think I see myself as a custodian of this sport, and when I leave it, I want to make sure I'm leaving it in a better position than when I came into it. So a big part of that is being a voice for change and making sure that you're creating environments where other female professionals can succeed and we're lifting them up and celebrating them, and it's not all about I'm going to tear you down and beat you and all that sort of stuff. Like, you want to win on your best day on everyone else's best day, and that kind of underpins everything. So that kind of being heard and being seen piece was quite jarring, and I'm very fortunate that none of the people that I work with now are anything like that, and they've just been super excited by this kind of I made the decision when I wanted in October 21 to start building my social platform so that when I was ready to turn professional, we had like a compelling platform for brands to buy into. Um, it meant leaning into that influencer side of things, which was, oh God, I hated talking on camera. It was awful. Like, we have some awful, like horrendous outtakes of those first couple of videos that I was doing, but I couldn't even say my name. I was just panicking. It was just, I couldn't do it. And we fought really hard to create this brand that existed without results, basically. So it was just like, this is who I am, and it is authentic, and this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to go. And I don't know. Well, I do know it has positively impacted the brand relationships that I do have now. In building that platform, we got a lot of pushback from especially men online. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Jenna knows. And it's very rarely from females. I think it's easy for people to hide behind a phone and stuff. So I think that, especially at the start, before I was able to distance myself from the messages that I was receiving, like, that really put me off what we were doing. But I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what I needed to do to get there. So there was an element of, we're just going to have to buckle in and ignore what's being said and ignore what's going on. And there are going to be people that don't like it, and they are going to tell you that they don't like it, or they're not, and they're going to pretend to be your friend, and then they're going to kind of whisper about it behind your back, and actually, you know what, we can forget about them too. So yeah, I don't know if that's just being a female in this kind of social world of doing sport, but it was certainly something that I noticed, that I was getting a lot of, it was just the assumption that I didn't know what I was talking about.
That's exactly
basically
it. And you know what, it's funny, especially when you're building that brand, it's so uncomfortable and awkward to put yourself out there. And like you said, I saw kind of the same thing. I started building brand more for the coaching side to be able to reach more people, support women in the sport. And it's crazy, some of the comments that you get. And I found in the beginning, the same thing. It really kind of, you see those negative comments and they really affect you for the first little while, because, you know, it's some random person. But what I've learned over the years is they don't really know you. It really says more about how they feel about their own kind of sad little lives, that they get joy out of putting negative comments on some person they've never met, Instagram or social media out there. And now I just kind of laugh, because it's really just kind of sad that that's what gets them off.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Now I have some fun trolling the back, which I find quite entertaining these days.
Ignore the noise, not this one.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, speaking of the social media side of things, what is the best way for people to follow along with you this year?
Steph Clutterbuck on Instagram, at Steph Clutterbuck. I post most things on there, except if I'm in a deep Ironman block, I will probably go quiet, because that's
the
one
fatigue
thing
is
that
real.
becomes too much.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't do it. It's too hard. I'm too
Yeah.
tired. But we also have our own podcast, which is at Buck the Trend, and it's weekly, which I am so impressed that we've so far been able to record once a week this year. It's probably the most committed to anything bar training I've ever been. And it is just a bit more of a breakdown of the journey into Kona. So we run through weekly training and race results, and kind of my own race results. So I'm, it's not a news podcast or anything like that, but it's just a bit of a fun behind the scenes for what's going on in my life.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we'll definitely link in the show notes to both of those there, and go give it a listen. We can always use some more entertaining and insightful stuff to listen to on those long trainer rides and runs. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Steph, to chat with us. We will definitely be following along with your season, and it was great to learn a little bit more about you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Steph.